Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Suzanne O'Farrell, and I am ASCL's Modern Languages consultant. And in a previous life, I was a secondary modern languages teacher, and then a head teacher of a large secondary school. And then I went to work for the Association of School and College Leaders as their curriculum specialist. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been their modern languages consultant, where I do anything and everything possible to promote languages in schools. And so that's my role at the moment. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes before we start, because we'll probably have people join us a little bit later, but I've had quite an eventful day. So I'm talking to you today from France, a little tiny rural village in Brittany. And this morning, where I have no Wi-Fi, incidentally, so I'm in my neighbour's house at the moment. But this morning, my laptop, on which was the only copy of my presentation, decided to die. And I've hastily had to recreate some slides on another laptop from scratch, the borrowed laptop. So they will be a little bit sparse in images and links and things like that, but I will upload the version afterwards and ensure that everybody gets the latest version for that. But so I'm going to be talking to you today about how mainstream schools can support home, heritage and community languages. And I'm going to be talking to you about what's leaders, what's teachers, how everybody can do in supporting all of our languages that we have in our country. I am just now going to attempt to share my screen and see if this works. And do post any questions that you have in the question box, and I'll keep an eye on that and the chat function as we go along. And of course, you can download this a little bit later. And I hope you're enjoying the language show. Here we go. Okay. Hope that everybody can see that. I'm not sure you can actually. Yep, you can. There's somebody's thumb going up there. So this is the title: Supported Schools with Home Heritage and Community Languages. If I say that home languages, as defined by UNESCO, are languages learned in the childhood environment. So I'm going to just refer to home languages for the purposes of today, rather than home heritage and community languages, but that's what I'm referring to, all of those, because that's how they're defined by UNESCO. And you've got my contact details there, my email and my Twitter, should you require them at all, and do get in contact with me. So to tell you about an exciting initiative really that's happening at the moment, and that is a new group, an advisory group that has been set up purely to support home heritage and community languages. And what I've done, I mean, this is all draft and this is not published or anything yet, but I've just put there the vision that we've all agreed on. And I'm going to give you a moment to do that really. Will identify with that vision really about fostering an understanding, humane and inclusive society. So I'll let you read that, but today more than ever, I think it's important to embrace this idea of our community where diverse cultures are acknowledged, accepted and respected. And you can see our aim there is to raise the visibility of a wider range of languages, increasing the number of pupils learning and gaining accreditation for those languages. So I'm going to ask this question really to kick us off. Is our teaching of languages, is it truly reflective of modern Britain today? I think we would recognise that the ability to communicate in more than one language and to be culturally aware is a significant asset in today's global interconnected society. And if you think about the fact that 1 in 5 primary children in schools today bring with them the knowledge and experience of at least one other language and culture, and they're daily bringing that into schools, I asked the question, are we reaping the benefit of that? And in fact, it's more in nursery schools. If we look at the language trends data, you can see that that number is increasing. I think it's about 28% in nursery schools. We have over 360 languages spoken in our schools at the moment. And we recognize that actually, as teachers, we're teaching in very multilingual classrooms these days. So if I just sort of talk about the qualifications and accreditation, really, I referred to in the first slide. And this is where we've had a little bit of an issue over the last few years, because we have approximately 30,000 students who regularly have been sitting a qualification in their home language every year. The majority of those students enter the community language through exams through their mainstream school. So they would complete the exam entries for them and they sit the exam there, but actually they're learning the language in a community-led supplementary school setting, a sort of Saturday school. And I'll say a little bit more about those later on. And during the pandemic, obviously, they missed out on being able to enter and sit those exams because school leaders, and rightly so, weren't able to rank order them, as was the request during the pandemic to be able to award students grades afterwards. So there were huge gaps in those languages and people just didn't sit Polish GCSE, or very, very rare at all, unless they were a large number in a specific setting. And what has happened really is that hasn't returned to normal. There's still this legacy issue. So it's a question really of them being systematically disadvantaged, not being able to sit their language exams. And we know, all of us, how widely respected GCSEs are. And we do currently have 19 different GCSEs available in languages in this country. The government was very keen a few years back to make sure that we maintained those despite the numbers and entries being low. So it's imperative really that we do enable pupils in our schools to be able to sit those qualifications and examinations, because we live in a society where people of different religions, languages, backgrounds all live along side by side, and the value of those languages really is integral to our diversity and success as a country. So that's just an aside really on the fact that those entries have diminished over the years, and we're trying as part of our group to ensure that they reach pre-pandemic levels and even more than that. Let's have a look at whether we're addressing this linguistic diversity in our schools. We know the role, the strategic role really, that the languages make to our economic growth, our global trade, our security, and our defence. And we can also, I think, all sign up to recognising the significance of these linguistic skills, not only for social mobility and social cohesion, but actually as real achievements for our EAL pupils. So it is a reality, our linguistic diversity, but more and more we're having pupils who are entering schools as bilingual, but leaving monolingual, in not really having the support that they need there. And I've not put a reference on the slide, but for any teacher of languages, it's worth you getting hold of the RAND report. That's R-A-N-D, the RAND report that was published only February of this year by Cambridge University and led by Professor Wendy Ayres-Bennett. And this was the first time that we'd had an impact study really on the value that learning studying a second language or knowledge of a second language can bring to our economic growth. And she found out that an increase in secondary pupils learning one of 4 different languages could increase UK GDP by billions of pounds over 30 years. So those 4 languages really, Arabic, Mandarin, French and German, with a benefit to cost ratio of promoting all of those 4 would be 2 to 1. So the first time, and it's a much larger report than that, but there is the first time that there is this evidence of how important our knowledge of languages, our range of languages could be to the UK's economic growth. So what can we do about it? Let's have a look at school leaders, because everything really comes from the leadership of schools. And this slide really is about a request to all school leaders out there to just sit back and think about what they can do. And if you're a teacher in a school, or if you're go to your line manager and suggest some of these things and see whether or not your school leaders, your governors would be open to some of the ideas over the next few slides. First of all, have a look at recruitment process. You will always have a desirable skills section when you're putting out a job. Are there, for example, knowledge of the community's languages or links with community settings or any of the languages spoken in your community? Having that as a desirable skill, I think, would really reach out to people and bring in that untapped knowledge into schools. Likewise, doing an audit of all your current staff, of your governors, of your volunteers, and finding out if any of them have links with community settings, have any knowledge of local cultural institutions or supplementary schools, and would be or would be willing to translate, for example, for some of your families that come in and are settling into school that have limited English at the moment. So all sorts of things like that, using your staff expertise to try and see how you can promote community languages. Other things, looking at your policies, looking at your curriculum policy to see whether it reflects an intercultural and inclusive approach to language education and acknowledges all the languages spoken in your school. Inclusion policies, does that make reference to support for home languages and reference to support for those qualifications of the home languages? And then there's enormous potential in your open evening, what you say on that first evening or and subsequent parents' evenings example about the referencing support for home languages and relevant qualifications, I think is crucial. The other area that you could look at are cross-curricular materials, so working with relevant experts to provide support for language education outside the classroom. So on areas such as history and politics, for example, of the specific home languages. But there are organisations, and I've got the links at the end, who could help supply some of those cross-curricular materials that your pupils may be happy to work on. So that's just a few ideas really for leaders. If we have a look how else you can support directly impacting pupils to start off with, how do you do a survey of when your pupils start your school in year 7 and find out what languages they have, find out whether they're continuing them in community settings, where the community settings are, and tracking those pupils all the way through their school to find out if they're continuing with that point onwards. It might also be interesting, and this is from a linguist's point of view, it might all be interesting to track those who then opt for languages, French, German, Spanish, Italian, whatever else you offer at GCSE. So to track those bilingual pupils continuing with MFL. As we all know that learning one gives you transferable skills to learning another, and what success they might achieve there. So that's just something incidental. But another initiative I think that could be really important is actually connecting pupils of the same home language to discuss how their languages can be more visible in school and the curriculum. So letting them lead, letting them have ideas, and contributing to your intercultural ethos and creating space for pupils to do that, I think would be valuable. Other ideas really that you can do, and I'm sorry this slide is so bare because I did have some just interesting more pictures to put here for you, but straightforwardly making home languages visible across the school, in all your corridors, in your hallways, taking every opportunity you can to display multilingual achievements, and likewise in the schools library, having simple reference materials, dictionaries, artifacts, displays, anything at all that really does show support for community languages, and alternating that so that it brings everybody in, everybody feels that this is part of their school, irrespective of their background. I think reaching out to parents and the community is obviously a hugely important part as well. And I think if you could promote any events or workshops in respective communities that are looking to support community languages and make a positive contribution to bilingualism. So are there any things going on locally that you can talk about in the school and that you can point the direction to for parents and for pupils? I also think any opportunity you can to reference the progress of pupils studying home languages, that they might not be studying them in your school setting, but have you any contact with their setting, and can you just make reference to that in your normal reporting process rather. I think that would be some contribution there. You could also be using every opportunity to celebrate your linguistic diversity so that all pupils recognize the richness of the school community. So success stories, anything like that that's in the local press, all the time, just constantly having everybody in their mind to try and celebrate that success in whatever way you can. You will probably have parents coming into school, I would hope you would do, and then use those opportunities to tell them about the cognitive, social and academic benefits of multilingualism and acquiring language qualifications. I think that's the key bit. It's about studying it and leading to the qualification at the end. And emphasize how all languages are of value in your assemblies, for example, and all different cultures. So using that's an enormously powerful time for whoever's taking the assembly to really reach out to pupils and make them all feel that they are in a very diverse community that they can be proud of, and that benefits them all ultimately. So that's something else, just simple little things that you're probably doing, but on a regular basis, not a one-off really. Have this systematically running through your school program and your school year. Now, this is relatively new, but hugely successful. It was developed by Hampshire County Council, and it's the local authority there rather, and it is the Young Interpreters Scheme. And this involves training pupils to act as mentors for their peers who are learning English as a foreign language. And if you go on the link that I've put there and the website, you can find all the detailed packs about how to get involved with that scheme and develop your peers, and on visitor school where it's taking place, for example, is the opportunity to do that. So hugely successful scheme, which is harnessing the potential and knowledge of pupils, supporting new learners to English so they feel safe, they feel settled, they feel valued from the start. So do get on the front foot with that and find out a little bit more about the Young Interpreters Scheme. So I was going to say a little bit more now about our supplementary schools that we've got, Saturday schools. The more diverse Britain becomes, the more scope there is for mainstream schools to take advantage of and benefit from an extensive network of supplementary schools. So these settings, these supplementary schools, enjoy considerable parental support, and they offer up an informal or personalized learning environment, and it complements mainstream school education. In actual fact, in 80% of supplementary schools at the moment, the home language is taught discreetly as a language. And I mean, there's no end of research which shows how that helps reinforce English. It makes them better communicators, it develops problem-solving techniques, and supports their reading proficiency. So it can only be a good thing, really, for pupils to be carrying on learning their home language. So you can find out whereabouts your local supplementary school is, if you don't know it already from pupils, via the NRCSE online database. So you've got a link there to that, and you can go on and you can see the schools in your area. And I would recommend arranging to visit to see the school in action. There is an excellent link there on bilingualismmatters.org, which is again is hugely rich material in enabling you to recognize what bilingualism has to offer. And one of the ideas put forward there is to maybe work with your supplementary school to collaborate on the training of teachers in the delivery of basic facts of bilingualism. Is somebody prepared to come in on one of your training days and talk a little bit about it to all your school, if your school community is reflective of diverse cultures in that way, and get them to talk about what does basic bilingualism mean, what does it have to offer, why should we support it, and how the pupils benefit from that. So that's could be something to explore. You've also got their staff expertise in dealing with pupils and families that you can tap into, maybe in lieu for use of your facilities, or your being part of your safeguarding training, or sharing any professional learning that is taking place within the school. The partnerships you can establish with supplementary schools could benefit both schools considerably. There's also a very good book or document, PDF really, which you can just download, called Saturdays for Success, and that really does give you an insight into how successful supplementary schools are, what they offer, and some basic facts about how many there are and what they offer, what they teach, if you're new to that as well. So huge wealth of material there that you can tap into in supplementary education. So benefits of partnerships with supplementary schools to you and your students. Well, I've already touched on this, but actually Cummings in 2021, and I'll say a little bit more about this in a bit, recognised that students' literary skills can improve in both languages by studying a home language. So that's something. So it's not something that will hold a home language back. It's actually the opposite. It will hold the English back. It will in actual fact benefit pupils learning English if they're continuing to learn their home language and study alongside. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment or two. I think the other huge benefit for you and your students is giving you really good engagement with pupils, parents from those hard to reach families sometimes that are difficult to get into school and difficult to communicate with. So that's another benefit there. Other benefits are you're contributing to the development of pupils' cultural identity, for example, their self-esteem. You're enabling your ethos of your school to be celebrated. So that's your linguistic footprint of all the languages that you have in your school. And of course, all community languages contribute to the EBAC, so to the languages pillar of the EBAC, so you can increase your EBAC that way. And ultimately, they act as having partnerships with supplementary schools and having pupils who are learning home languages in your schools. It's a role model really for your pupils from diverse backgrounds. It's an excellent opportunity for young people to role model, and it does support your work on global citizenship, your international work, and it is reflective of your community. So this nothing but benefits really from engaging with and establishing really good partnerships with supplementary schools, and enabling your pupils to study languages there and then sit the exams in your setting. So if they do sit exams in your setting, what can you do to support these, to make sure that they don't sort of drop off the end then and don't sit the qualification? First of all, I think you could look at putting information on home languages that can be sat at school into your year 9 and 11 pathways, and build it into the booklets and things that you have there, so it really is integrated into your school. You want to maybe look for outside examiners. That usually is the sticking point and the reason why people give up on this and don't do that, and it is not always easy. However, some of your internal staff if they speak other languages, maybe be willing. You could advertise early in the new year, early in the school year rather, in the newsletter, for example. You could start early on canvassing around for people that would be willing to ask at supplementary schools, etc., willing to be the oral examiner for the oral part. And obviously you can then ensure, once you've got that sorted, that the pupils are, you can track their progress all the way through the year as well, just like any other subject, and involve the tutors. Tutors are key to this, and good communication systems are really key to enabling everybody to be working together for the benefit of the pupil to be able to sit their exam at the end. When exams were all the same before we had the, until we have the new GCSE in French, German and Spanish, obviously there was modification in terms of assessment that you could do together. You could share training, for example. There was overlap there. You could moderate speaking exams together. Whether or not that will still be possible once we move to the new GCSEs, I don't know, but there may be some elements that you can invite teachers in to share the training and to give them confidence, really, and it still might be worthwhile, even though it's slightly different. So language moderation activities, and invite them if they want to take part in some of that, so they get a feel for how you're assessing and conducting exams as well. So anything you can do all the way along, and there are schools that do this brilliantly that you can visit actually. At primary settings now, this is quite interesting, and it's not just primary. You could really think about your year 7s as well. But what's tended to happen in primary is that there has been a false assumption that children from migrant families progress more rapidly if they forget their home language. And in actual fact, they thought it was a barrier. So perfecting English has been the main focus. That's been the focus. And therefore, we need to put a home language aside, because they really need to concentrate on English in school. And it was maybe just useful as a process for transition to English. But all the research now actually shows that a home language is a child's part of a child's identity. It's the medium in which his or her action knowledge has been acquired, and it's also the default of their discursive thinking, that their primary cognitive tool. So we really need to encourage them in their home languages as well. And Cummings's research, which I referred to earlier, which is recent research, shows that when children learn to read and write in one language, they develop generic skills that they can transfer to other languages. So in actual fact, the opposite of this slide really is what we should be doing. We should be encouraging their use and study of their home language alongside English. You can see there, it's been a missed opportunity, I think, for all pupils in school. And there's lots been written about this. And one quote that stood out to me from a teacher is that actually, when teaching in a multilingual classroom, when you bring in somebody's home language or reference to home language, the lights come on. And I thought that really did reflect the thrust of what this slide is about. So how can we support young pupils on our primary, our year 7? Well, I've already mentioned about encouraging pupils to improve language proficiency, any language awareness work to show how languages and cultures are related, any work on celebrations on intercultural, international dimension, consider how you might bring in home heritage languages. And also, there's some excellent resources on with really good ideas for culturally inclusive practices in both settings, secondary and primary, on the ALL website, the Language Association for Language Learning. And I'll just show you their slide there. That's the page. It's a brand new page, Home Heritage Community Languages. It's got huge resources, huge ideas, personal stories as well, personal testaments, how they've been supported through to learn their home languages in their school setting. So wealth of materials there that would help you on that particular page. You're a member of the Association for Language Learning. So when we started doing this Haskell on supporting pupils with home heritage and community languages, we've also done a primary version, and I will put the link when I upload the slides. The primary languages paper is slightly different, and it's already there. It's been up there for a few months. This is a copy of the paper that's going to be the secondary paper, which again has its emphasis in encouraging the acquisition of qualifications and accreditation as well in the languages that we've been talking about. So that's just the first page of it. That's what it looks like, and you can download that from the Haskell website. It's not there till next week, but if you search on supporting student, home heritage languages, community languages, if you want to look at certainly the primary one in the interim. But there's an information paper for all schools which you can put in front of your senior leaders, in front of your line managers, and you can have a look through, and all of these ideas are listed there under different headings of areas that you can do to, just if you can do one thing really to support primary languages or secondary languages, that would be great. Bernadette Clinton is a well-known in this area in Hackney Education, has done some transformative work there. And I'll just let you read what a seasoned and practiced leader in this area has to say about the value of establishing links with community settings. I think that last point about it's vital to provide a joined up approach so that pupils do not fall between two stools. I think that is the essence to it, that partnership that I was referring to really. Because this is pupils' cultural identity that we're talking about, really important, and the benefits for the country that we've talked about as well. Just one other initiative that's slightly at a tangent, this is, but it might be of interest. There's been a brand new EPQ developed by Pearson for Ukrainian students. So there's a link to it there, but that's very exciting, I think, and about time. So that's all going to be on the page from Association for Language Learning, on that advisory group, all the new initiatives that are happening. And in fact, one other initiative that it's happening, this regular training, it's a training session on the 19th of November, I believe, and it's about motivation for teachers of home languages. So there are regular training sessions dedicated to teachers of home languages, which again, you could share, you could facilitate, or you could do together, or invite, or go and make sure your supplementary schools are aware of it, so that we can just work together really on with the same aim. And links here, I've got the Association of School Language Learning, you've got the Young Interpreter Scheme, the Bilingualism Matters, the database there as well, and and a couple of academic research things that I've referred to as well in there for you. So I think that's about all I was going to cover today. I obviously can have a look to see if I've got any questions that you can ask. Just one thing really that I wanted to pick that I've been asked. Yeah, somebody's put there about the community languages don't have a speaking opponent. So certainly I haven't spoken to about A-level, but yes, you wouldn't need a speaker for that. So, it's facilitating the exam. People have asked me, well, what could I go away and do today? I think one thing that you could do is get hold of the paper next week when we've published that, or certainly get hold of the primary languages paper today, and just go through and almost do an audit of any things that you're doing already in your school and celebrating those and making sure everybody's aware of them, involving or then having a look and talking to other people in the school, to your department, to your, if you finding out if you've got a supplementary school nearby, your links, your audit, or one thing in there to start the ball rolling, or even plan some new strategies for your incoming year group, and how you can approach that year group differently, and what might you ask beforehand about your pastoral information, about links, etc. So once we start to think, it'll snowball, and you'll have even more ideas than I've put out today, but just want people to maybe think about how they can support accreditation and home language study, bearing in mind what a rough deal they had during the pandemic, and we haven't returned to normal because it's just life's too difficult and we're very busy, and it's just easier sometimes not to do that, but it does make a huge difference to those individual pupils and parents. So good luck with everything, and you've got my details, and thank you very much. I don't think I've got any more questions. Somebody's asking, and we just go back through here now. Somebody's asking where we can find the language paper. I will the link to the languages paper is on the uploaded PDF, which I will get sent over and uploaded to you. But if you just Google ASCL supporting home languages, primary languages paper, you will find it. Yeah, the secondary Facebook page can be a good forum for looking for examiners. That's something I hadn't thought of yet. If anybody's not a member of the secondary Facebook page, then do have a look at that and do it early on. You know, that's the thing I was thinking, there's a few teachers to go around, getting there at the beginning of the year and seeing if you can find, you know, right throughout your network, people that can support you with that. So that's that one done. Yeah, somebody's saying it's in a worrying situation regarding community language A levels. I can't echo that enough. So if today, if you can, you know, if there's anything that we can do to do that, because once we lose it, it's a bit like us losing German in schools. Once we lose these languages and then we lose the habit, there'll be the worry that they won't, they're not profitable for the exam boards as it is. They're commercial organizations and they run on profit, and all of those community language exams are not profitable. We just have government commitment to it at the moment. How long that will be there for to finance and to ensure that we do get those languages, I don't know. We certainly need school ministerial team that is very supportive and reflective of community languages, and our previous one was, I don't know where we are with them now, but we have had people in the last few months that were supportive. It remains to be seen what the current team will do. But, you know, we're doing all we can to raise the profile of accreditation, language accreditation, and home study for these important languages to our country. So good luck with anything, and anything that people want to contact me with, then do just drop me an email. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye-bye.